There's a people in Chinese history textbooks listed as a minority ethnic group number 53. 5-3. As if they're a footnote, a demographic statistic, a museum exhibit about colorful traditional dress. But for 268 years, they ruled China. All of it. The Qing Dynasty, one of the greatest empires in human history, was theirs. And before that, they were forest hunters in Manchuria, nomads, tribes the Chinese barely noticed, people without writing, without cities, without what civilization was supposed to require. The transformation took 600 years. Tribe to kingdom to empire. Nomad to emperor. Let me take you to the 10th century Manchuria. Northeastern frontier, beyond China's Great Wall. Dense forests, bitter winters, rivers freezing solid for months, mountains separating valleys. This isn't farmland, this is wilderness. And in this wilderness, the Jurchens. Not one tribe, dozens, maybe hundreds, scattered across Manchuria's forests and river valleys. Each with their own leaders, their own territories, their own feuds. They hunted deer, bear, boar, sable. The fur trade was everything, selling pelts to Korean and Chinese merchants. They fished. The rivers were full of salmon, sturgeon, summer fishing camps, winter ice fishing. Protein that didn't require farmland. They gathered ginseng, mushrooms, pine nuts, forest products worth more than gold to Chinese medicine markets. And some farmed, not intensive agriculture, just small plots, millet, barley, enough to supplement hunting. But farming was secondary. The forest provided. Their social structure was tribal, extended family clans, led by hereditary chiefs. Chiefs who proved themselves through hunting, skill, warfare, or wisdom. Authority wasn't automatic, it was earned through respect. No cities. Villages, yes, wooden longhouses clustered along rivers. Mobile enough to follow game, stable enough to maintain territory. No writing system, oral tradition, songs, stories, genealogies memorized, and no centralized government, each tribe independent, sometimes allied through marriage or mutual defense, sometimes at war over hunting grounds or insults. To Chinese observers, the few who bothered to notice, these were barbarians, uncivilized, primitive, forest dwellers barely worth mentioning in official histories. The Jurchens didn't care what China thought. They had their own world, their own ways. We got a good price for the furs. These tools will last the winter. Yes, and the silk is beautiful. My wife will be pleased. But they knew China existed, that massive civilization to the south. Walls built to keep people like them out. Markets that bought their furs. A constant presence, distant but undeniable. And they knew the other players, Korea to the east, another civilization, another market. The Khitans to the west, nomadic cousins who'd already conquered northern China, established the Liao dynasty. The Khitans were the model, nomads who became rulers, who proved that barbarians could defeat civilization, who showed it was possible. But the Jurchens weren't trying to conquer anyone. They were just living. Hunting, trading, surviving winters, raising children, honoring ancestors. Then the Khitans made a mistake. Time Transition Act 1, Ending Pause. Early 12th century, the Khitan Liao dynasty controls northern China. They're powerful, established, getting comfortable, and they're taxing the Jurchens heavily, demanding tribute, furs, ginseng, horses, taking Jurchen resources to fund Khitan luxury. But it's more than taxes. It's humiliation. Khitan officials treating Jurchen chiefs like servants, demanding submission, acting like conquerors in Jurchen ancestral lands. Halt, who goes there? One Jurchen chief isn't accepting it. His name is Wanyan Aguada. Born around 1068 from the Wanyan clan, Aguada is different, smart, ambitious, strategic. He sees what his people could be, not scattered forest tribes, united, powerful. In 1114, he does something unprecedented. He unites multiple Jurchen tribes under his leadership. Not through conquest, through persuasion, marriage alliances, shared grievances against the Khitans. And in 1115, he declares independence, establishes a state, calls it Jin, gold, the Qing Dynasty. The Khitans think this is a joke. Forest barbarians declaring a dynasty. These people don't even have cities. Then the Jurchens start winning. Aguada's forces use mobility. They know the terrain, forests, rivers, mountain passes. Khitan cavalry deadly on open plains, struggles in Manchuria's dense woods. Jurchen warriors use composite bows, hunted with them since childhood. Every man is a skilled archer. Khitan armies face thousands of expert marksmen, and Aguada uses psychological warfare. This is liberation, not conquest. Indigenous people throwing off foreign oppressors. Other tribes join him, the movement grows. By 1120, the Jurchens control all of Manchuria. The Khitans have lost their northeastern territories, the source of their cavalry horses, their fur trade wealth. The Khitan Liao dynasty is weakening. And the Jurchens have tasted victory. But here's where it gets complicated. The Song dynasty, Chinese civilization in the south, sees an opportunity. Enemy of my enemy logic. Song China proposes an alliance. Jurchens attack Liang from the north, Song attacks from the south. They'll divide Liang territory. Everyone wins. Aguada agrees. Why not? Shared enemy, mutual benefit. The alliance makes sense. 1125, the Jin-Song alliance crushes the Liao dynasty. 200-year-old Khitan Empire collapses. The Jurchens take the northern territories, Song gets central plains. Victory for both. Then Aguada dies, 1123. He's only in his 50s, but he's built something extraordinary. A kingdom, an army, a state that spans from Korea to Mongolia. His successors, his brother, then his nephew, look south at their Song allies and they see weakness. Song dynasty paid the Jurchens to fight. This is what we get for doing their fighting. We trust this small token suffices for your esteemed court. But Song armies barely contributed. They didn't hold up their end, treating Jurchens like hired mercenaries, like barbarians who got lucky. The attitude is clear. You're still not civilized. The Jurchens remember this.
1127, just 2 years after defeating the Liao. Together, the Jurchens invade Song China. It's devastating. Jurchen cavalry, now experienced from conquering the Liao, sweep through northern China. Song defenses crumble. The Jurchens capture the Song capital, Kaifeng, capture the emperor, capture the entire royal family, take them north as hostages. Song Dynasty flees south of the Yangtze River, establishes a new capital at Hangzhou, and the Jurchens, they now rule northern China, the heartland of Chinese civilization, the forest hunters from Manchuria, governing the cradle of Chinese culture. It shouldn't work. Tribal nomads administering sophisticated bureaucracy. Illiterate warriors ruling literate scholars. But it does work, because the Jurchens adapt. Here's what marks the Qing Dynasty. Fascinating. They become Chinese without stopping being Jurchen. In northern China, they adopt Chinese administrative systems. Keep the bureaucracy. Keep the examination system for officials. Keep the Confucian scholars running the government, because they're not stupid. They know they can't govern millions of Chinese farmers and merchants with tribal leadership structures. Chinese civilization is complex. It requires Chinese methods. So Qing emperors wear dragon robes, hold court in Chinese palaces, perform Confucian rituals, issue edicts in Chinese characters. But in Manchuria, they stay Jurchen. Hunting camps, tribal gatherings, speaking Jurchen language, maintaining forest warrior culture. They create a dual system. Chinese in China, Jurchen in Jurchen lands. This is strategic brilliance. Many conquerors try to fully adopt their subjects' culture and lose their military edge. Or they try to force their culture on subjects and face rebellion. The Jurchens do both and neither. They're flexible, code-switching between identities. Chinese scholars serve the Qing court, but they're not in charge. Jurchen nobles hold the real power. The scholars advise, but warriors decide. The military stays Jurchen. Cavalry units, archery, forest warfare tactics, they don't abandon what made them successful. They keep the martial tradition alive. They even create a writing system, 1119. Hold steady. Draw the string back fully. Now they have literacy, can record their own history, laws, culture. This is identity preservation. We'll adopt what we need from Chinese civilization, but we'll remain ourselves. But there's tension, always tension. Chinese subjects resent foreign rule. Our sons speak more Chinese than Jurchen. Subtle resistance. Passive non-cooperation. Treating Qing as illegitimate occupiers, not rightful rulers. Jurchen nobles worry about going soft, becoming too Chinese, losing the warrior spirit that won them the empire. There are decrees Jurchens must practice archery, must maintain horse riding skills, must not abandon tribal customs. It's a balancing act. And for 120 years, it works. They fight wars. Against the Southern Song, it's fine. Just a few raiders making trouble. A manageable threat, nothing more. They build cities, temples, palaces, infrastructure. Northern China under Qing rule is economically vibrant. They create culture, Qing Dynasty poetry, painting, scholarship, blending Jurchen and Chinese traditions, hybrid culture emerging. This could have continued. The Jurchens ruling northern China, Song ruling southern China. Two Chinese states with different dynasties. Not unprecedented in Chinese history, but then the Mongols united. 1206, he becomes Genghis Khan, universal ruler. The Jurchens notice, of course they do. Mongols are northern neighbors, but they're not too worried. Mongols have always been fragmented. This disunity probably won't last. Is reasoning. The Jurchens once demanded Mongol submission, treated them as vassals, now we're settling accounts. The Qing military is formidable, experienced, well-equipped, Fortified cities, sophisticated defenses. Against the Mongols, none of it matters. Mongol mobility is unprecedented. They move faster than Jin armies can respond, appear, attack, vanish. Cavalry tactics perfected over generations of steppe warfare. Mongol siegecraft is devastating. They learned from Chinese engineers, improved it, and brought siege weapons the Jurchens can't counter. And Mongol ruthlessness is total. Cities that resist are massacred, total populations. Pour encourager les autres, taker, as strategy. The Qing Dynasty fights hard. The Qin court flees south to Kaifeng. The Jurchens are now defending, not conquering. They try diplomacy, offer tribute, recognition, peace terms. The Mongols take the tribute and keep attacking. They try alliances. Song Dynasty, their old enemy, now looks like potential ally against common Mongol threat. Some cooperation happens, but not enough. Too much bad blood. They try military. For 23 years, the Qing Dynasty holds on, shrinking, desperate, but surviving. 1234, final siege of Kaiju, last Qin city. Mongol and Song forces surround it. The last Qin emperor, Emperor Modi, knows it's over. Rather than surrender, he commits suicide. The dynasty ends with him. The Mongols absorb northern China. The Song think they've gained territory, eliminated a rival. They're wrong. The Mongols turn on Song next. Within decades, the Mongols will conquer all of China, the Yuan dynasty. But that's another story. The Jurchens defeated, scattered, their dynasty dead, their empire gone. Most assimilate into Mongol-ruled society, later into Ming dynasty China. The Jurchen identity fades. Languages shift, customs erode. Our ancestors conquered the Ming boy. We sat on the dragon throne. Really? But we just hunt squirrels. The forest warrior culture seems finished. Another conquered people disappearing into history's margins. For 350 years, that appears to be the end of the urchin story. It's not. Late 16th century, Manchuria again. The forests where Jurchens once hunted. Ming dynasty rules China. They're declining. Corruption, internal strife, weak emperors, but there's still the empire. Still Chinese civilization. And in Manchuria, there are still Jurchens. Not a unified people anymore, just scattered tribes again. But one man remembers. His name is Nurhaci, born 1559, about when Jurchens ruled China, about warrior ancestors. Nurhaci is strategic, brilliant tactician. He starts small. Late 1580s, he unites tribes around him through warfare, through marriage. 1601, he organizes Jurchen society into military administrative units called banners. 1616, Nurhaci, claiming direct lineage from the Jurchen emperors of 400 years earlier. The Ming dynasty dismisses this. We've seen this before. Northern barbarians getting ideas. They'll crush this quickly. They don't. Nurhaci wins battles, takes Ming fortresses, expands territory. The banner system proves devastatingly effective. 1626, Nurhaci dies, but his son, Hong Taiji, continues the expansion. Association with barbarian status, old identity that China defeated, Manchu is new, clean, a fresh identity for a rising power. And in 1636, Hong Taiji goes further, changes the dynasty name, not later Jin anymore. This is rebranding, identity transformation. We're not trying to restore the past, we're creating the future. 1644, the moment arrives. Ming dynasty is collapsing, peasant rebellion, chaos in China. Rebels looting the capital, Ming loyalists scattered. No clear authority. A Ming general, Wu Songui, defending the northern frontier, faces a choice. Submit to rebels? Ask them to help restore order? Eliminate the rebels? Stabilize China? The Manchus accept. Banner armies march through the Great Wall. For centuries, that wall kept northern barbarians out. Now they're invited in. The Manchus defeat the rebels, capture Beijing, proclaim the Qing Dynasty as rulers of China. What was supposed to be help restore order becomes we're in charge now. And unlike the Qing Dynasty 500 years earlier, which only conquered northern China, the Qing keep going. They conquer all of China, north and south. By 1683, the entire country, plus Mongolia, plus Tibet, plus Xinjiang, the Qing Empire becomes the largest China in history, bigger than Tang, bigger than Ming, bigger than any Chinese dynasty before. Forest hunters from Manchuria ruling 400 million people, and then they rule for 268 years. The end of 2,000 years of imperial Chinese history ended with Manchu rulers. So what happened? How does a people go from scattered forest tribes to ruling the world's largest empire? Twice? There's no simple answer, but there are patterns. Adaptation. Adaptation. The Jurchens didn't cling rigidly to one identity. When they needed Chinese administration, they learned it. When they needed literacy, they created it. When they needed legitimacy, they claimed it. But they never abandoned the core, the martial culture, the banner system, the Manchu identity. They ruled as Manchus, not as Chinese who happened to be Manchu. They maintained difference. Manchus couldn't marry Han Chinese, officially, though it happened. Manchus had separate legal status, distinct culture preserved. This is how they lasted 268 years as foreign rulers, not by becoming Chinese, by staying Manchu. But ruling wisely. Strategic brilliance. Nurhaci, Hong Taiji, the early king emperors Kongxi, Yongzheng, Qianlong were exceptional leaders. Smart, capable, understanding both Manchu and Chinese worlds. Lucky timing. Windows of opportunity. They seized them. And military excellence. The Jurchens were always superb warriors. Cavalry, archery, discipline. The banner system maximized this. When they fought, they won. But here's what haunts the story. By the early 20th century, there were 10 million Manchu, fewer than 100 native Manchu speakers remaining. But most had assimilated, spoke Chinese, not Manchu. The Qing Dynasty preserved Manchu identity for its elite, but the people gradually absorbed into Chinese civilization. They ruled China for 268 years, and in doing so, became Chinese. The cycle is almost poetic. 10th century, forest tribes, barely noticed. 12th century, conquered northern China, build Qing Dynasty. 13th century, destroyed by Mongols, scattered, absorbed. 17th century, unite again, conquer all of China, build Qing Dynasty. 20th century, dynasty falls, people assimilated, identity fading. Rise, fall, absorption. What does it mean? Maybe that identity is fluid, that peoples transform, that barbarian and civilized are just perspectives, not destinies. Maybe that conquest goes both ways. Maybe that survival takes many forms. The Jurchens survived as rulers, then as subjects. Or maybe the story isn't over. 10 million people identify as Manchu today. Young people learning ancestral languages, cultural revival movements, pride and heritage,
Maybe in another 400 years, there will be another transformation. History isn't linear. It's cyclical. What's forgotten can be remembered. The Qing became Chinese, but the Manchus remained. From forest hunters to emperors, from emperors to memories. What comes next? The story isn't finished.